Hello and welcome to GovDirection's Gov School Series. My name is Mark and I'm here today to talk to you about new emergency bids as well as pinpointing opportunity, zeroing in on that perfect contract for your company. And we're going to have a focus today on the General Services Administration. We have one of our summer interns who's done us a PowerPoint regarding a recent session he has set in, and he's here to brief you on that. Let's get started here. As just a reminder, GovDirections is located in Atlanta, Georgia. We are a leading publisher in the local, state, and federal government contract information space. Our headquarters are based at Ponce City Market. We were founded in 1998, and we now serve just over 97,000. Got to update that number there, but 97 registered users throughout the United States and Canada. Now have members in some 72 countries, in fact. In 2020, we're going to deliver just over 1.6 million listings to those companies via daily personalized email alerts. Make sure you have those settings in your own member home account set correctly, and then you get your daily matches. The series that we've been working with is focused on a recent legislative action to help address the COVID-19 coronavirus. And we started with an initial HR 6074 was passed, and there was an $8.3 billion appropriation. And then HR 6201 came quickly after, another $192 billion before one of the largest spending measures in recent history, HR 748, $1.8 trillion initiative. And then finally, more recently, the HR 266 or $489 billion. All of these had a variety of different goals and attempts to address COVID-19 in different ways, but we primarily focused in on the procurement side. And for example, I'll call attention to HR 266, which is replenishing our hospitals a $75 billion appropriation. And then another $25 billion going out into COVID-19 testing, as we've seen testing itself ramp up across the United States. But we've been following those, and we always frequently refer back to the Congressional Budget Office, cbo.gov, and you see those publication links there, so you can go in and learn just a little bit more about those spending measures and the details of those. What you call attention to is that the normal $4.5 trillion marketplace for federal government, local government, state government spending has been increased probably around $3 trillion in some recent estimates total. So it's producing the significant opportunities for a number of different areas for companies who have found themselves in a period of time where they really might need to have that backed up. And the federal government is there in a process that has worked fairly well. I know oftentimes the negatives get swamped the positives, and we don't really reflect on how well we have approached this virus, and the spending measures are a part of that. Just as a reminder, there is a fragmented government system in the United States. We have over 35,000 plus cities and towns, 3,000 counties, 12,000 plus school districts, and now we're creating all kinds of different ways we're going to educate our children with charter systems, online systems. So seeing some of those, the way we govern ourselves change. Another 38,000 plus special districts, all with a specific reason to exist, to provide hospital services, airport services, park systems, and transit districts, for example. Fragmented system, not broken by any means. That's why I like to use a puzzle. When you first open that puzzle box, you get thousands of pieces sometimes. Looks like it's just unwieldy in all different measures, but then as you start to pull things together, it produces a nice image, and that's what GovDirections does for our members. We take that fragmented system and put it to an area that you can actually see everything together. And as a part of that, we like to focus in on particular areas where there are significant opportunities. In the General Services Administration, we all have come across this organization, and we want to be on the GSA schedule a lot of times, but not quite sure exactly how that happens. And they frequently do small business webinars. And so Max Simpson, who is an intern for us here at GovDirections this summer, a graduate student at University of Georgia, he's prepared for us a recap of a recent session that he's worked with. So Max, let me turn this over to you. You ready?
Yes, Mark, thank you. All right, so I recently sat in on the General Services Administration Small Business Webinar Recap. I think it's very important for the subscribers of GovDirections because it's important to understand the basics of contracting with the federal government, and there's not really a better place to start than the General Services Administration. So, yeah. Next slide, please. So just a brief overview of the GSA. It's the General Services Administration. It is one of the federal government's largest buyers, and it contracts billions of dollars per year to government customers. And the customers that will use the General Services Administration as their database to look for opportunity will include executive branch, the judicial branch, the legislative branch, and even the military. So a lot of high spending customers within the GSA market. So just minimum requirements, these are the prerequisites if you want to do business in the GSA, and just kind of basic guidelines of contracting with the federal government. So what you're gonna wanna do is register with the System for Award Management, also known as SAM, and then you will then obtain a Data Universal Numbering System number, also known as a DUNS number. These are, again, probably terms you've heard before, but just in case you're new or was confused. They also will give you a NAICS code, which is your North American Industry Classification System. And this will be several digits, which will identify which service you're in. For example, it could be consulting or agriculture. And this will really specify your company and give you a code for what your business is. And then you also would like to identify if you are a small business and you qualify for set-asides. For example, there are small disadvantaged small businesses. They're women-owned, veteran-owned, 8A. It would be very important and very wise of you to see if your business falls into one of these categories before you do business with GSA. So always check beta.sam.gov. And this is important because all of these companies you might have heard of before, all of these branches of government business, such as Fed BizOps that you see, System for Award Management, they all have recently been ingested into beta.sam.gov. So this is going to be your main database. This is where you're going to do all of your searches. This is where Mark's going to focus a lot of his GovSchool meetings on. And it's very important to know, to be familiar with beta.sam.gov, because the more familiar you are with that, the more familiar you'll be with doing business with the GSA. And I just wanted to throw some terms that you'll often see on beta.sam.gov up there. So sources sought notice. This is a more of federal government putting out a, I would say they're kind of testing the waters. So they're basically just throwing something out there, seeing if there's any companies that would potentially do business with this. And if they believe they have enough confidence where they'll actually be able to force a contract, then they will send out what's called a special notice. And this is what you've heard as an RFP or an RFQ. So yeah, those are the two basic things you'll see on beta.sam.gov. So the first kind of portion of the General Services Administration is the Federal Acquisition Services. Now, this is what we're going to be talking about more often. And this is the only source solely dedicated to procuring goods and services for the government. So this could range from mowing services to transportation service to furniture, preparedness and response equipment. That's especially important right now, but also many more. So definitely remember the Federal Acquisition Services, because that's probably a term that will come up as you're doing research with government bids. And then for the more engineering construction side, there's also the Public Building Service, also known as PBS. And they are also known as the landlord for civilian federal government, as they like to say. So they acquire a bunch of space for the federal government. They're the ones in charge of trying to carry out these new construction projects, but they need help from these small businesses. And that's where, if you're a janitorial service, if you're a landscaping firm, if you do HVAC, lighting, security, etc., that's where you would step in and look for these particular contracts to do business with them. So those, I just wanted to kind of get the two large portions of the GSA. I just wanted you to be familiar with those terms. So there's been some updates because of, obviously, everything has changed with COVID-19. So yeah, next slide. So what's recently been done is they've reinstituted the Disaster Response Registry when you go to search on SAM. And essentially this is rolled out periodically when there's a hurricane or a natural disaster. In this case, it's a pandemic. And they basically, it's going to be an expedited search that people can use um, to get the supplies and services they need and to a particular area and fast. So this is a special update to SAM. So if you want to get registered with the disaster response registry, what you're going to want to do, if you already have your DUNS number, if you already have a SAM account, which I'm sure many of you do, you're going to want to go in and indicate that you want to participate in the disaster response registry. Now, not every business qualifies for this, but it would be very wise of you to check to see if yours does, because if you do, these federal contractors will start to see your business more, and they'll see that the goods that you offer, and they can get it at an expedited pace. Next slide, please. So this is one that was specifically brought up during the meeting, and I'll have Mark click on that. This is an RFI for PPE, which is in probably the highest demand it ever will be right now. So if you were into the PPE business, this would be very beneficial for you to look at. So as you can see here, these are the sources they're looking for. It's very concise, laid out for you, antibacterial soap, all that. So what you're going to do is just scroll down, and this is as easy as it gets. So have you had a GSA contract? If the answer is yes or no, whichever one you click, and then you're going to put in your company name. For example, we're Gov Directions. You put your first point of contact, phone number, etc. And this is all just basic, concise, laid out for you. And you want to respond to the RFI if you have it. And this is where it would be important to know if you qualify as a small business, because it's also going to ask some socioeconomic descriptions about your business. And you can obviously fill out, we're none of those, but you might be. You click all 50 states, and pretty just yes or no questions. If you have this, if you don't have it, and if you're able to deliver upon request. And then as you go down, they're going to ask you how many you have, how many days you think it would take, the country of origin of all of these goods or services that you may own. So pretty simple. You fill it out, and then it's going to ask you a little bit more detailed questions about what your agency is, some of your past records and things of that nature. And this is basically, you upload a couple things there, and soon enough you submit it, you'll get a confirmation email, and if they are interested, they will contact you back, and you can start to negotiate a contracting deal. And again, I want to reiterate, if you have PPE, this is a very good time for you in terms of the government contracting business. Next slide, please. So I also wanted to bring up subcontracting, because that was a topic that was brought up several times during the meeting. It's something that I think is often misunderstood, but it's really not that complicated. So essentially, subcontracting is when one of these larger companies or ones that earn these big government contracts, sometimes they can't shoulder the entire load of what they have to do, or they might run into a problem or something along those lines. Can you go back to that next slide, Mark? And essentially, sometimes they will need help from small businesses to help shoulder the load of what they have to do. So what GSA has is they have these these resources, the e-library and the subdirectory, where you can essentially put in your place of performance, your NAICS code, etc. And basically, some of these companies will be looking for a small business to kind of help them out. So this would also be a good opportunity if you don't feel like you're ready to take on one of these, $1 million contracts. Of course, that's the ideal, but sometimes it's best to work incrementally, and subcontracting is a great way, especially right now with everything going on, to get your foot in the door and help a larger business that has already won a contract that could potentially need help. And then there's also the GSA Forecast, and this is important because this is what is upcoming. This is the upcoming opportunity, so it's always good. And of course, at Gov Directions, we're always monitoring this, but it's always good if you want to proactively take some steps, because the forecast is essentially where the GSA is going, what they're going to be needing, opportunities in the future. And the person presenting this presentation was very clear that if you want to do business with the GSA, you should definitely be checking the GSA Forecast because it's a great opportunity for small businesses to find multiple opportunities. And the awards vary, but it's also important, and that's why I highlighted it, to contact the small business office to inquire about specific contract and end dates and upcoming competitions to ensure that you have the time and also the resources to prepare. Next slide. And that's why I also wanted to list this right here, because these are the small business specialists for the GSA. This is their full-time job, is to help out small businesses. And they're actually spread out regionally so they can focus more of their efforts to their potential clients in that region. And the person that presented this presentation was William Strobel, and he works in, obviously you can see he works in some of the Midwest region, but you can find your state. And if you take away nothing else, look at these contracts. And these, again, this PowerPoint is on the website. You can email Mark for it. These are the people you're going to want to be in touch with. So if you have any questions, if you want to fill in the gaps of this presentation, they will be happy to answer your questions, and they will also be ready to do business with you. So with that, I yield back to Mark.
So I want to thank you, Max, for that excellent presentation there. Of course, Max is the summer intern with GovDirections, and he's a part of the UGA class of 2021 in the Honors College, and he's an MBA candidate, where he also has a major in political science, and you see his previous work responsibilities there. And we are certainly appreciative of you taking the time to sit through that session and then advising us of what's happening there at the GSA, Max. So have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
And so that will conclude this particular session. And since it is a recorded version, the remaining part of it was live, and we walked through the actual bids that were more recently appropriated. Please join us at those sessions routinely every day. Throughout the summer, we've been having some sort of session for our members. Just monitor govschool.com, and you can register for notifications. So thank you, and have a great day.